Good morning, everybody. I don't know why my little stand feels like it's wobbly this morning or not standing straight or something, but it must be right. It must be right, I think. Or let me just move you slightly. Hold on, don't get seasick. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you this wonderful Wednesday morning and in time for this week's episode of Wisdom Wednesdays. And this is the Sally Goodwin Ministries platform that encompasses Church Without Walls and Igero Prophetic School and Activate Her. And I'm just moving my lights around and things. Sorry. And yes, and this is the space for the fabulous community that makes up the Church Without Walls, for which we are also very, very grateful. And so welcome to all of you, wherever you're from, far and wide, whether you're watching the live, whether you're watching the replay, whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you watch on YouTube, whether you watch on Instagram, whether you watch on the Activator website, whichever it is, welcome. And it is good to have you here at this time. And there was something I was going to say that has just left my brain. As I thought about it, it literally just left my brain. Okay. Anyway, moving swiftly on then. Good morning, wonderful Wendy. Just a reminder once again, well, you're going to get tired of these reminders. Gorgeous Curl, good morning. That tickets are live. Mora, my friend Louise from New Zealand. Tickets are live for the Church Without Walls conference in June, and we will be welcoming the powerful prophet that is Emma Stark into our midst in June, and the conference that runs from the 19th through to the 22nd, and there are good morning Tamsin, my lovely. Significant Sylvia, welcome. The tickets are available on Quicket. Good morning, Natasha. Lovely to see you. Tickets are available on Quicket. The links to Quicket are all over on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my YouTube, on my TikTok, on my WhatsApp status. That's probably gone now, but everywhere that I can possibly think to post them. Alternatively, if you can't find a link, all you have to do is go onto Quicket and just search for Church Without Walls, Sally Goodwin, Africa Arise, any one of those names, and the link to the tickets should come up. So please book your tickets. The early bird ticket prices are only available until the end of this month. So the early bird ticket prices are available until the end of April. From the 1st of May, the ticket prices, there will be normal ticket prices. There are 3 events you can attend. If you are not a member of Igero Prophetic School and you are not a part of the Church Without Walls community, there are 3 events you can attend that are open to the public. There is an all-day event on Thursday, the 19th of June, so put in your leave. An all-day event, freedom event. It's going to be incredible, just bringing freedom to each of us and also freedom to our nation. And then the Friday evening, Emma will be bringing the word of the Lord. The Saturday evening, Emma will be bringing the word of the Lord. So there are 3 events that you can attend that are open to the public, that where you can come and hear the word of the Lord. Thank you, my lovely. Louise is saying she loves the olive color. For autumn, winter, this is my favorite color. It's just green. Green in autumn and winter, green is just my base color. Any green actually, but I love this color. And then if you're a part of the Igero Prophetic School, there is a prophetic day on the Saturday that you can attend, which is a separate ticket that you buy. It's very minimal charge, only 80 Rand, and it's simply to cover the lunch that we're going to have together. So that is for if you're a part of the prophetic school. And then and then on the Sunday, if you're part of the Church Without Walls community group, if you're part of the Church Without Walls community WhatsApp group, if you're part of the Church Without Walls group, and it doesn't mean that you can't be part of any other church, because we are open to receive, we don't have borders and boundaries, we are without walls, then you are welcome to attend a church service with Emma on the Sunday morning in Durbanville. So the venue for the conference is in Brackenfell, and so please all, I know that we are, as South Africans, and I think particularly as Cape Townians, we are all very good at leaving it till the last minute and thinking, middle of June, that's so far away. It's literally 2 months away. It is 2 months away, and I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to get over the fact that we're in the middle of April. So time is flying, and I don't want you to reach the point where no more tickets. So please book your tickets as soon as possible. Please read all the instructions, read all the information on Quicket about the conference, about what's happening. Make sure you buy, if you want to come to all 3 of the events, make sure you buy the bundled discounted ticket, which gives you a discount if you're attending all 3 events. Just like make sure that you read the things and you know exactly what's going on. So, but we are so excited to welcome Emma here, Emma and David. So Emma will be here with David, her husband, and also probably her 16-year-old son, Samuel, because I think it's their school holidays. So I think he's going to have to come to South Africa on his school holidays, which I'm sure will be lovely for him. And then from here, they're going to Tanzania. So on the GPA group, we have this incredible prophetic couple called Phil and Julie Hepworth. If any of you have any connections to Tanzania or are anyway interested in Tanzania, or God has laid Tanzania on your heart, part of the GPA senior leaders, prophetic, I think they're in Lion Roars, I can't remember now. But they, Phil and Julie Hepworth, and they run something called Water for Life in Tanzania, where they basically dig wells and provide water in areas in Tanzania where people have to walk like miles, kilometers to get water, where children die. I can't remember the exact statistics, so I don't want to quote them incorrectly, but there is a high percentage of children who die from drinking dirty water, infected water. And so Julie and Phil, that's what they do. They're from the UK originally. They stay in Australia for 2 months, and then Tanzania for 2 months. Australia 2 months, Tanzania for 2 months, and they literally, get obviously funded and sponsored and all sorts of things, and they dig wells in Tanzania to provide fresh water for people. So just amazing. They're just some amazing people who are a part of the Global Prophetic Alliance, and it's such a privilege to partner with them and to be a part of what God is doing on the earth in them and through them. And yes, and I'm trusting, because there's some of the GPA leaders or people who are part of the senior leadership, etc., Lion Roars, etc., who would love to also, who are wanting to come to the conference, who are trusting that they're going to be able to come to the conference. So I'm trusting that we're going to get this influx of prophets from all around the world. I think that will be absolutely amazing and such a blessing for all of us. So book your tickets, ladies and gentlemen. And I've had a few people message me and ask me, is it only for women? And possibly, I'm not sure why people would think that. Maybe because my audience is just a lot of women, or maybe I don't know why people would think that. But it is open to men and women. It's open to men and women. So ladies, bring your husbands. There's no gender restrictions for the Africa Arise conference. It is open to men and women. So book your tickets, bring your husbands, and let us see. I know. Every time that I kind of sit with the Lord and think about the conference, what I actually see is just the shift, like the earth shifting. In fact, my gorgeous Karen friend, who comes onto the online, lives in, oh no, I'm going to get it wrong. Is it Strathspey? Is it Strathspey? Like really, like the southern tip of South Africa. Is that Strathspey? She's living there at the moment. Her and her husband Victor, just the most incredible people, absolutely wonderful. They do missionary work into Zambia, just amazing people. We just have such amazing people, and they live in, I'm sure it's Strathspey. Forgive me if I've gotten that wrong, but if Strathspey, my geography is terrible, is close to the southern tip of Africa, then that's where Karen and Victor live. And she messaged me the other day to say that things in their house were shifting. I think it was their house. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I know I sound all woolly and all over the place, but I've had a few really, really bad nights. Really, really bad nights. And I'm very tired. I'm just being honest. I'm very, very tired. I haven't been sleeping. I've been in quite a lot of pain, and I'm very tired, so my brain is trying to fire on all cylinders. But there we go, Lucinda. Thank you. It is Strathspey that's near the end. Okay, wonderful. Strathspey. Karen, there you are, my friend. Okay, there you are. So Karen is now on in the comments. Karen, my lovely, please don't let me get the story wrong. If you want to type the story in the comments so everyone can read it. But it was something about the things in their house shifting, cupboards and things shifting, and nobody could understand what it was about. And experts who came in to have a look said that it's actually the tectonic plates shifting. So please, my lovely, have I gotten that right? I hope I've gotten that right. And so this is, the actual earth, the actual earth shifting in Strathspey or towards the southern tip of Africa. And so every time when I think about the conference and I think about Emma coming and I think about what God is going to do when she's here, I just picture the shift, a physical shift and a spiritual shift, and almost like when you put your car in gear, and if you drive a manual, when you don't put it into the right gear and it goes because you're trying to find the gear, when you put your car in gear and it's that like click, when the gear like clicks into place and the car shifts, from first into second or second into third or something, it feels, that's what I sense in the spirit when I think about the conference with Emma, that shift. That's it over South Africa, over Africa. It's like a gear is going to click into place and it's going to shift like this. And then there's going to be a speeding up, a kind of an escalation. So yes, if you can make it to the conference mid-June, 19th of June to the 22nd of June, 19th of June to the 21st of June, somewhere around there, forgive me. Please, please, please come and join us. It honestly will be worth your while. You will not regret it. That is something that Emma is known for, is to bringing shifts and change and speaking truth. Truth that is sometimes hard to hear, but truth nonetheless over nations. So yes, very nice venue. Brackenfell, it's a fairly easy venue to get to. There's parking, all the things that everybody looks out for. It's all there. So book your tickets, ladies and gentlemen. Book your tickets. My gorgeous Tamsin friend, it's their date night, her and her husband. And so for date night, she's bringing him to Emma. I hope he enjoys it as part of date night. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, sunset on Friday evening. Passover begins. The Jewish festival Passover. I'm sure most of you understand that or know that Passover commemorates the Jewish festival of Passover, or Pesach, commemorates the Israelites being delivered out of Egypt, and when they had to paint the blood on their lintels, and the angel of death flew over and he basically destroyed the firstborn of every family that that didn't have blood painted on their lintels. Stu, yes, book now, not just now, not just now, right now. Right now. So, and it's so, I must say that whenever I dwell on that subject too much, I think to myself, wow, it's so hard because it's translated in most Bibles as the angel of death passed over, and we think of it as the angel of death. And I think there we go. There's my friend Karen's testimony about the tectonic plates moving. She's written it in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. So read the comments on the Facebook Live and see that it's there. It's in the comments. And because it just blew me away, and I knew that it's a physical confirmation of what I know is going to happen at this conference in June. So come on, I'm expectant, I'm anticipatory, I am excited, I'm all the things. Oh yes, that just popped back into my brain. Friday feast will be live on YouTube. Okay? Friday feast live on YouTube. So those of you who haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, which is Sally Goodwin Ministries, so please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because then YouTube, if you click the notify me button, YouTube will notify you when I'm live, which apparently Facebook doesn't do. So Friday feast will be live on YouTube. For now, I'll just do lives on Friday on YouTube. Okay, we'll see how it goes. So next week, Monday and Wednesday will be on Facebook, but Friday feast will be live on YouTube. So please come and watch me on YouTube. Don't leave me there all alone in YouTube land with nobody to talk to. Okay, so the story of Passover and the deliverance. Yes, I know, my lovely, but I think that is so significant. So my gorgeous friends Karen and Victor will be in Zambia over the conference time, so they will be ministering, but I know that this is for Africa, so you're going to receive it wherever you are, my friends. So when we read the Passover story, it's this Passover festival, the celebration of the deliverance of the Israelites out of Egypt. Absolutely incredible what God did. But when you actually think of the angel of death, and actually theologians and scholars say that it was God. The angel of death, as referenced in the Bible, is the Lord, because God is the only one with power over life and death, or the only one, who's supposed to have power over life or death. And so the angel of death is actually the Lord, and that the blood on the lintels was not, I think often we taught or we read it as a warning, and the blood is on the lintel. So this is a warning to the Lord, to the angel of death, to not pass over our threshold into our house and destroy the firstborns. But actually, the blood on the lintels it wasn't so that the angel of death would come in and take the firstborns, but it was a welcoming of the Lord into that space. And so the interesting thing is that it's quite difficult, I think, for us, particularly in our society today, in the way we often view God today, in the way we refuse to sort of embrace all the facets of the nature of God. I think it's quite difficult for us to imagine our God, this God whose mercies are new every morning, this God who says that loving, goodness and mercy will follow you all of your days, this God who speaks about, his loving kindness, being forever, his patience, etc., all of that, actually moving through a whole nation and basically killing every firstborn being an animal in that nation, including the firstborns of those people who were part of his nation, the Lord's nation, but hadn't obeyed his instructions. And I think we think, today, as we sit in our very westernized world, with our very westernized mindset, with all of that, we sit and we don't want to think about a God like that. We don't want to think about a God who comes in wrath and comes in judgment and basically just wipes out, and when we read about, the grief and the mourning, and even the grief and the mourning of Pharaoh the next day, and our hearts are softened with compassion, and we just think how, and then it's easy for us to think, it was the angel of death. So that's almost like a bit separate to God, and not think that it was something the Lord himself actually put in place and allowed to happen. And I think that that is one of the reasons why we struggle with our westernized, very Greek influenced mindset to accept all the facets of God's nature. But what we often forget is, the amount of opportunity God had given Pharaoh and the Egyptians the amount of opportunity he had given them to let the Israelites go. And, and the plagues that started off as just irritations and then ended up with this 10th plague as being the worst thing anybody could possibly imagine. So, it's not that God is this slightly schizophrenic God who kind of, oh, you haven't listened to me, like boom, 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 and it's also not and he's also not this God, that sits on his throne and is just kind of, oh, you are all evil and so full of sin and you're doing the most terrible things, but I'm just love and I'm just kindness and I'm just grace and I'm just mercy. This is a God who says, I have given you a period of time to seek me. I have given you a period of time to turn from your wicked ways. I have given you a period of time. I have waited for the pot of evil over particular nations or any particular nation to fill. And when that pot of evil is full and I as God can no longer accept that evil being on the earth, I will deal with it. And, I follow, I'm studying one of the modules I'm busy with at the moment with my degree is apologetics. And so I pay attention and follow some of the people online who are anti-Christian, who were Christians and have walked away from God, walked away from the faith, and the things that they say, when they talk about the flood and the way God just destroyed humankind and what kind of a God is that and how can we serve a God like that. And I think what people forget in all of that, is everyone has a choice. Everyone has a choice. You choose to serve God or you choose not to serve God. And then I have people who say to me, yes, but what about, what about the Muslims and the Buddhists and the Hindus, and they were born into that faith and so they're raised believing that that's the right faith. Well, we don't hear about it because it's not in the news, but there are thousands, in some instances, hundreds of thousands of Muslims coming to know Jesus in the Middle East and in places like that, where Jesus himself is appearing to them. Jesus is clear that everyone will have an opportunity to choose him. Everyone will have an opportunity to choose him. And you look at the story of somebody like Abraham, who God picked out of all the people on the earth as the one righteous man. And you understand that there was no church then, there were no evangelists, Jesus hadn't been yet, people were idol worshipping, all sorts of things, and yet Abraham knew God. How? We don't know how, because the scriptures don't tell us exactly. But the point is that at some point in time, God had introduced himself or allowed Abraham to know him, and Abraham had chosen him. It's the same with Job. There were no, Job was before Abraham. There was no Israel yet. There were no, preachers or pastors or apostles or prophets to tell, it was just God and these people on the earth and the descendants of Noah, and most of them are turned to idol worship. But here was Abraham and he'd chosen God. How? We don't actually know. The point is that everybody has a choice. Everybody has an opportunity. Everybody has a chance to choose the Lord. And people don't. And they then bear the consequences of that. It's like anything. It's like drugs. Everybody has the chance to choose to take drugs. I can't think of any other example off the top of my head. My brain is fried. But, everybody has the chance to try or choose to take drugs, okay, to be injecting themselves with heroin or fentanyl or whatever the latest drug on the market is. And some people choose to and some people choose not to. And if you choose to and you continue choosing to, you're going to face the consequences. Are drugs bad? Absolutely. Terrible. Awful. Horrible. Do people turn to drugs for various reasons because of trauma and everything? Yes, absolutely, I get that. But at the end of the day, there is still a choice that is made. A choice is still made. And, you know, I understand trauma more than a lot of people just because of my life and what I've lived through and what I've survived. I understand trauma. I understand what it does to you. I understand all of that. I understand trauma and generational lines. I understand all of those things. I really, really genuinely do. And I absolutely understand the subject of mental health and the way we need to deal with those things as believers, as Christians. I absolutely understand that. But I also think that there is a point where we confuse sin and trauma, where people, not everybody, but where some people use their trauma or their issues or whatever it is as an excuse to sin. And then we are like, oh, it's not sin because shame, they've had this, No, it is a choice. Everything is a choice. Yes, you might have a disposition towards choosing something because of the trauma in your life and because of your generational heritage and because of how awful your life has been. You might have more of an inclination to choose to make the wrong choice, but it still is always a choice. So, and so with the Egyptians, Pharaoh had a choice. And, and then we think, oh, well, Shem, but the whole nation of Egyptians, and they didn't have a choice because Pharaoh chose for them. But we forget that they worshipped Pharaoh. There were Egyptians who painted blood on their lintels. There were Egyptians who had paid attention to the plagues that had happened and who painted the blood on their lintels when they saw the Israelites doing it because they knew that the Israelites' God was the one true God. And those same Egyptians were Egyptians who left Egypt with Israel and became assimilated into the nation of Israel. So there were Egyptians who chose the truth. There were Egyptians who chose God. There were Egyptians who chose to do the thing that the Israelites were doing because they knew that the Israelites' God was bigger than Pharaoh. And they got to leave Egypt and go with the Israelites. I can imagine. Can you imagine? I can imagine that 40 years in the wilderness, they were probably thinking, did we make the right choice? Did we choose the right thing? Was this really the best choice? They must have wondered a few times, but they chose. They got to choose. So everybody gets to choose. Everybody gets to choose. So when we say things like, when you hear prophecies that are very unpopular about God, is in judgment mode and God is judging the nations and God is judging the church and everyone's like, oh, no, grace, grace, grace. Yes, there is grace. There is always going to be grace. If you turn from your sin, if you turn from your wicked ways and follow the Lord only, if you turn in obedience and follow God only, yes, there is grace and there is mercy and there is loving kindness and goodness and all of those things. All of those things. And remember what I preached on the other day, that the Hebrew word for if means choice. If you turn, if my people, if you turn from your wicked ways, if you choose me, if you walk in obedience to me, if you love me above everything else, if you love others as you love yourselves, if is a choice. We choose God. We choose forgiveness. We choose love. I don't know how many times when I've ministered to people, I have to say to them, when I say to them, you need to forgive X or Y or Z, and then they're like, I don't feel like it. And I'm like, no, but that doesn't matter. You don't have to feel like it. It is a choice. You choose to forgive. And as you choose to forgive, and sometimes you have to choose to forgive 70 times 7, as you choose to forgive, eventually you feel like it. So it is all a choice. And I think that we need to pay a bit more attention to the facets of the nature of God that we don't actually enjoy or that we don't love so much, in the same way that no child loves that facet of their parents' nature that is disciplinarian. But if you didn't ever discipline your children, then, you know, if you never taught your children table manners and to eat with their mouth closed and to chew with their mouth closed and to, you know, not to interrupt and, to, you know, if you never taught your children those things, then they're just going to be this wild, you know, wild person in society. It's the same with us. God is like, you know, I love you. I love you. There is all this grace, all this goodness, all this mercy, all this loving kindness just waiting for you. But there's some things we need to deal with here. Because I love you, I want you to be the best that you can be. Because I love you, I want you to learn how to be this amazing human being. Because I love you, I want you to step into the destiny I have for you. And in order to do that, there's some stuff we've got to get rid of, you know? So, yeah, I feel like in church today, what we do often is we, you know, like I've said to you often, we romanticize Bible stories. So we romanticize Esther and we romanticize Abigail and we romanticize and we make them sound like these like romantic love stories, which they were not at all, at all. And we also sanitize the Bible. You know, we sanitize it. We read the stories in the Old Testament and we think, oh, that was Old Testament God. God himself says, I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. So, no, there was no Old Testament God and New Testament God. It wasn't like Jesus came along and God kind of relaxed a little bit. You know, we can't sanitize the Bible. We have to read it in context. We have to read it according to the culture of the time. We have to read it according to the way things were done then. And we also have to read it according to the fact that, you know, everyone had an opportunity to choose God. And every time they chose something different. And eventually the Lord was like, enough now. Enough now. And one day, God will give the final enough now. Now, and he will be like, now it is really enough. You know, the evil has reached its fullness and I cannot anymore. And Jesus will return. Just a note, you know, because I'm preparing to do a course on the book of Revelation, preparing to present a course on the book of Revelation. And just a note that there are two words that don't appear in the book of Revelation at all. Two words that don't appear anywhere in the book of Revelation. And the one is rapture and the one is Antichrist. And yet if you think of the book of Revelation, what are the two things that come straight to mind? So interesting. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that here. But so what I wanted to just read to you this morning, and I've digressed a little bit as per usual, because I just felt like that was what Holy Spirit wanted to say this morning. But I wanted to read to you from two different spaces in the Bible. So interesting. So interesting. So I am in 1 Samuel chapter 5. 1 Samuel chapter 5. And the Philistines have captured the ark of God. So remember, there was corruption and there was evil in the house of Eli, who was the priest. And then Samuel took over from Eli, but Samuel was actually the last of that kind of priestly line because his sons were also evil. So, and then, you know, now we all are royal priests. There's no need for that Levitical lineage anymore in the kingdom of God, because we are all now a royal priesthood. This is what I've been trying to, you know, make sure you all understand. So the Philistines have captured the ark of God. God has allowed this to happen, people. He has allowed this to happen because Eli and his sons were evil, and corruption has come into the temple of the Lord, into the house of the Lord, into the Levitical lineage. So God has allowed them to capture the Ark of God, the Ark of the Covenant. And they bring it to Ashdod, and they take the Ark of God and they bring it to the temple of Dagon, and they set it next to Dagon. But early the next morning, when the people of Ashdod got up, there was Dagon fallen down with his face to the ground before the Ark of Adonai. Okay, so they put Dagon back in his place, and and then the next morning they get up, and Dagon has fallen down. Dagon was again, verse 4, Dagon was again fallen down with his face to the ground before the Ark of Adonai. This time the head of Dagon and both hands lay there, severed on the threshold. All that was left of Dagon was his torso. Now I want you to pay attention to this. Both hands lay there severed on the threshold. The Philistines take the Ark of the Covenant. They take it into their temple. They put it next to their god, Dagon. Now Dagon apparently could have been a fish god. Nobody's 100% sure, but he was also apparently the god of grain and wheat or something like that. Grain and something else, grain and food or something like that, Dagon. Okay, so here Dagon has fallen over, and his hands and his head come off, and on the threshold, I would pay attention to that, on the threshold, and that is the first time in the Old Testament that word is used, threshold, a particular Hebrew word. I should have written it down. It's like mishpat or mishpah, something like that. A specific Hebrew word for threshold is used there for the first time in the Old Testament, okay? And then this, and that word for threshold also means python. It also means python. So you understand that when the Ark of the Covenant is put into the temple of Dagon, and Dagon, this idol who can do nothing actually because he's just stone, falls and his head and his hands over the threshold. You know, God is speaking about a threshold that the guardians of thresholds, people with covenant spirits and things like that, for good and for evil, guard those places. But God has defeated Dagon. Now I want you to remember that. Dagon, fish god, yes, and god of grain. And something else, but I can't remember the other thing. Okay, now I want us to go. I love this. Now I want us to go to John chapter 6. John chapter 6, verse 4. John chapter 6, verse 4 says this. Now, the Judean festival of Pesach or Passover was coming up. So when Yeshua looked up and saw that a large crowd was approaching, he said to Philip, "Where will we be able to buy bread so that these people can eat?" Now Yeshua said this to test Philip, for he himself knew what he was about to do. Philip answered, "Half a year's wages wouldn't buy enough bread for them." And then Andrew says, "There's a young fellow here who has 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish, but how far will they go among so many?" And then Jesus sits them down and he basically feeds them. So with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, Jesus feeds over 5,000. Now, what is amazing is firstly that this is 2 days before Passover. Okay? 2 days before Passover. And Passover, the whole point of Passover, remember, was the blood on the lintels, the blood on the threshold, where you crossed over into somebody's home. The blood was painted on the lintels. It's about threshold. Now here, then you have in 2 Samuel, you have the Dagon, the god Dagon, being defeated by God, with the Ark of the Covenant in his very own temple, and falling and being destroyed across his threshold. And now you need to remember that God Dagon is the god of fish and the god of grain. Okay, now you have to look at here the loaves and the fish. Not only that, but multiplication, loaf. They are all words, Hebrew words that are similar to Dagon, like Dagar. They all come from that. It's just amazing. It's amazing. What am I trying to say to you? What am I trying to explain? Very badly, it feels to me. 2 days before Passover, 2 days before this commemoration of this threshold event, Jesus is there. Jesus multiplies loaves and fish, but Jesus is always doing more than that. He's always doing with something. He's always also dealing with something on the land. He's also saying to the people, the Jewish people who remember, had not stayed faithful to the Lord their God, had run off after other gods at the very first opportunity they got, often over and over and over again, who now lived within a very sort of cosmopolitan space where they had Greeks and they had Romans and they had Greek gods and they had Roman gods and they had all of these things that were in their space. And who many of them were just like, yes, okay, we worship our God, but then we're just covering all our bases. We'll worship that God and we'll worship that God. We'll worship the next God. And also bearing in mind that the Jewish people, that Hebrews, that people in the biblical Middle East, they were very cognizant of the symbolism of things, very cognizant of what things meant, very cognizant of their language and the root words of things. They loved poetry. They loved apocalyptic writing. I mean, you just have to read the book of Revelation to see they loved, dramatic writing. They loved drama. They loved theater, they loved poetry, they loved using their language to express things that we don't even pick up because English just doesn't get that, and because we can't read the ancient Hebrew. That was the kind of people, so they didn't miss. We have to have these things explained to us because we don't get it, but they didn't miss out on that. They would have known that Jesus was saying, in the same way as Dagon was destroyed, the idol that was Dagon was destroyed in the Old Testament and fell across. Here I am, 2 days before Passover, 2 days before this threshold event, 2 days before we commemorate this threshold event, and I am saying to you that I am the bread of life. I am the source of your provision. I am the one that gives the bread that you need to eat, not Dagon. And then what does he do right after that? First he does he multiplies the bread and the fish. First he does that. And then straight after that, that evening, he gets on a boat and he walks on water. No, his disciples get on a boat and Jesus walks on water. And it's just amazing because Asherah, so Asherah, we've spoken about Gideon and him pulling down the Asherah poles, Ashtaroth, Asherah poles that were put up to Ashtaroth. And then most of these gods, these godlings, these idols have different names according to different cultures. So she is also called other things, but Ashtaroth is one of them. And she was known as the one who walks on water. Ashtaroth, the goddess, Ashtaroth was known amongst the pagan gods, amongst the pagan people, as the God who walks on water. So Jesus comes up, multiplies the loaves, multiplies the fish, feeds over 5,000 people. There's still leftovers at the end. And he's basically saying, Dagon, you done, you gone. I'm the bread of life. I'm the one who brings. And then his disciples get in the boat. There's a storm. They're afraid, as per usual. Jesus walks on the water and he goes and he goes and tells them to stop being afraid. And there he's like, I'm the one who walks on water. Not Ashtaroth. Not to tear down those Asherah poles, people, because Ashtaroth is not the God who walks on water, or the goddess who walks on water. I'm the one who walks on water. And so here he just comes and he's just like, oh my word, no, Dagon, no, sorry, Paul, you're done. Here I am. Here I am, the bread of life, the source of your provision. And then, oh, sorry, Ashtaroth, no, your days of being worshipped as the one who walks on water are over. I'm the one who walks on water. I'm the only God. And I walk on water. And just again, just as another point, which I feel the Holy Spirit highlighting to me. It says here, when evening came, the disciples went down to the lake. They got into a boat and set out. By now it was dark. Jesus had not yet joined them. The sea was getting rough because a strong wind was blowing. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the lake. They were terrified, but he said to them, stop being afraid. It is I. They were terrified. Yes, they were terrified because Jesus was walking on water, absolutely. But at the same time, they were also terrified because that was, that was the priority of the gods, the idols, the gods and the goddesses. So Ashtaroth would have been known as the one who walked on water. And here comes Jesus walking on water. So there would have been this acknowledgement, this realization, once again, that it was Jesus. And it was only Jesus who would walk on water. And these other idols, they are going to fall. And I think in Africa, it's a little bit better, easier for us in Africa to kind of, especially if you're born and raised in Africa, it's a little bit easier for you possibly to grasp these things that the people believed back in those days, because we are surrounded by people who believe in, witchcraft and all sorts of things. And because the spirit realm is very real, and Africans, by nature, no matter which African nation you're in, are very open in the spirit, open to the wrong things often, but they are very open in the spirit. So, so I think sometimes with our Western mindsets, or if you're in a more European or sort of Western nation, it's more difficult to grasp because our minds have been so secularized and so removed from the spiritual that it's almost like we taught there is no sort of spiritual realm. It's very much that Greek mindset of only the things that are tangible are actually things that we pay attention to, and the spiritual stuff is just, so we don't even acknowledge it. But these were people who were steeped in spirit, whether it was spirit as in God or spiritism as in not God, but they were steeped in the biblical Middle East. They saw angels, they saw things happen, they believed in idols, they were very open in the spirit realm, be it good, be it evil, they were very open. So things like this, they knew it was real, but it terrified them. So what am I saying? What am I trying to say? We are effectively 2 days before Passover, from this evening. We'll be 2 days before Passover. Okay. I want you to remember that 2 days before Passover, 2,000 odd years ago, Jesus was multiplying the loaves and the fish and walking on water. Around this time, where we are now. Yes, calendars and moons and everything, got it. But what I'm saying is, if you just take it as 2 days before Passover, effectively at the end of this evening, we are 2 days before Passover. And Jesus, 2028 and a half years ago, roughly, was walking on water and feeding over 5,000 people with loaves and fish. 2 loaves, 2 fish and 5 loaves. So God is a God of multiplication. God is a God of provision. The only source of provision that we have is God. The only source of sustenance we have is God. The only God who walks on water is Jesus. There is no other. There is no other. And this month of Nisan, that encapsulates Passover and all of that. This month of Nisan is a month of multiplication. It is a month of provision. And I know that with the way things are going in the world, with everything that's happening economically, with all the decisions that our governments are making, whether you agree with them or not, that's not the point. The impact that has on our finances, etc. It is often a time when we get anxious and fearful because what we see as our source, be it our job, be it our position in the church, be it our husband's job, be it whatever it is, what we see as our source is shaky because of everything that's happening on the earth. And it is shaky because banks, investments, stuff happens that you and I have no control over. But God, But God, so today, for many of you, today, God is saying this to you. I defeated Dagon, who thought he was the God of fish and the God of grain. I defeated Dagon. He's done. He's gone. He's over. His head smashed and his hand smashed over the threshold where the python spirit was waiting to demolish, and it couldn't. And then he's like, there is no one who walks on water but me. I am the God who walks on water. I am the God who walks on water. And if you hold my hand and walk in obedience with me, you get to walk on water like Peter. If you stand in faith, you keep your eyes fixed on me, you get to walk on water like Peter. 2 days before Passover, 2,000 and something years ago, our Savior, our Messiah, was feeding over 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish and walking on water in the middle of a storm. And he is the same God yesterday, today, forever, which means that he is still there. He is still doing those same things today. He is still moving. He is still walking on water. He is still defeating false gods. He is still feeding. He is still providing. He is still being the source. He is the same God. He is the same God. He is the same God. And yes, he is also the same God who judges the nations. He is the same God who is judging the church. He is the same God that gives grace and eventually says, okay, you've now had 1,000,000 choices to choose me and you haven't chosen me. And so I'm sorry, but this is now done. The same God, the same God. 2 days before Passover. Isn't that the most beautiful thing you've ever heard? Now, the Judean festival of Pesach was coming up. Some translations say 2 days before Passover. Absolutely amazing. Just incredible. So, I will see you again on Friday morning at 7 a.m. for Friday Feast on YouTube Live. Go right now and subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notify me button so that you know that I'm live on YouTube on Friday morning. Friday morning, 7 a.m. I'll be live on YouTube. And we will hear whatever God has to say. But for today, ladies and gentlemen, for today, I hear the Lord saying to you, each and every one of you, I am your source. I am your provision. I am the God who walks on water. Do not look at your circumstances. Do not look in the natural. Do not look at what is happening around you. Do not fear, for I am the same God who fed over 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish, and at the same time defeated Dagon, who didn't matter anyway. And I'm the same God who walked on the water, and at the same time defeated Ashtaroth, who didn't matter anyway. I am the same God. And I alone will be your source. And you know what I'm trusting for? What I'm decreeing and declaring over all of you, what I'm believing for? Miracles. Financial miracles. Miracles of provision. Miracles of multiplication. That I'm going to be inundated by WhatsApp messages. And I am inundated by WhatsApp messages. So if I haven't replied to your message yet, please forgive me. I promise you I will get to it. I will be inundated with WhatsApp messages and testimonies about provision and multiplication, because that is the space we're in prophetically right now in the calendar. So he is your source, ladies and gentlemen. He's the only source you need. I love you. Bless you. I will see you on Friday morning for Friday Feast live on YouTube. Love you. See you there.